Dear friends, good afternoon. My name is Julia, and this is Wily Monkey, symbol of our Cambridge English qualifications for young learners. If you can hear me well, please put a plus in the chat box. Wonderful, I see so many pluses. That's really, really great. So, on behalf of Cambridge Assessment English and Cambridge University Press, I would like to welcome you to our online conference, Teaching and Assessing Young Learners 2021. I hope everyone is safe and healthy. I see so many people are joining us. So before we start, I would like to give you some tips for webinar attendees. We do recommend you to use Google Chrome. If you have some problems with sound or video, you cannot see the video from the presenter or cannot hear, please refresh the webinar page or reconnect to your internet connection or type @support in the chat box and a member of the support team will help you. Please be an active participant, provide feedback and ask questions. Just a reminder, please be sure to type your very special questions into the question box. The recording of the webinar will be available soon. All people who join us today will receive a certificate of attendance. The materials will be distributed next week. Great. So, I see that the first presenter is already here, and it's 4 p.m. in Moscow, so I think that it's time to start. The first presenter is Raby. Ian, please join me here.
Hello.
Hi Ian, how are you today?
I'm good, thank you. It's a sunny afternoon here in England.
That's great. Sunny afternoon in England. Actually, in Moscow, it's sunny too today. So I hope that everyone is enjoying the weather. So, Ian, can you see your presentation? Can you see your slides?
I can, yes. Let me just check if I can change them. It's slightly different from last time. Yes, I can. I'm ready.
Wonderful. So the floor is yours.
Thank you, Julia, and thank you for inviting me again. It's really nice to be with you guys one more time. I'd also like to welcome Joe, who I think is presenting later today, who I met earlier last year, and I hope that he enjoys being with you guys in Russia now. So choose your own adventure. So this seminar is really more aimed at movers and flyers, I guess, rather than starters. But you can also use a lot of what I'm going to talk about today with getting pet for schools, preparation students, and even with some adults. So I hope you'll be able to take something for whatever particular students are doing. I'd also say that most of what I'm going to talk about are things that I've used online only, because obviously I'm here in the UK and we can't do anything at the moment. So all the schools, whether they're private schools or public schools, are closed. I can't even get your hair cut, which is why I've got this not very nice thing going on here. All right, so choosing your own adventure. All right, so this is about reading and writing, and I started by thinking about who doesn't like reading and who doesn't like writing. And the people that I've identified for today are students with a low level of English. So in practical terms, when you're reading, it's not really very exciting to read something that's very boring, something that's very simple. Here we have something called the Oxford Reading Tree. Maybe you've used these books yourself, books about Biff, Chip and Kipper, and they're just not very exciting. So again, it's kind of quite demotivating. Students whose reading age is lower than their actual age in L1. So, you know, if you're not very going to be the same in English as it is in your first language. And we as the English teacher can't really do very much about that. Students who don't enjoy reading in L1. So, you know, I think for my generation, certainly for my parents' generation, there wasn't much to do when we were younger. You know, in your free time, parents would restrict television watching, would restrict you using your Game Boy or your Sega Mega Drive. So reading was kind of your way to kind of enjoy yourself. If you went on holiday in the summer, you went on holiday for something your parents wanted to do, like going bird watching in the north of Scotland. So a book was our way out, but things have changed now. So kids perhaps don't read for pleasure so much. And therefore it's quite difficult to get them interested in this. And I think this is linked to students with short attention spans. I'm constantly surprised about how my friends' kids can't really sustain interest in anything for more than about 10 minutes. You know, which is certainly not the case of how it was when I was, you know, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 growing up. And then the last one here, boys. So I think boys often have you know, a bit more of a problem with reading. I think it's possibly to do with age. I'm going to be louder, I can sit closer. Otherwise, I'm afraid it's going to have to be you who turns up the sound. So yes, boys, I think, you know, girls tend to develop their reading and writing skills more quickly. Boys don't particularly like this because they tend to like to, you know, see everything as a competition and to win. So therefore, if you don't take part in the competition by not reading at all, therefore you can't lose. So, you know, that's damaging. Of course, not all boys are like that. It's a generalization, but I think it's perhaps more true than not. Who doesn't like writing? Okay. So again, students with a low level of English, students who have problems with writing in L1. So, you know, I think about a student of mine, a previous student of mine who was there in Russia. And, you know, his writing in English was terrible. And I asked our office to give us an example of his writing in Russian, and you know, it was also terrible. So if he's not very good at writing in one language, he's probably not going to be very good at writing in another. And he was obviously embarrassed by this. So a lot of the time, you know, he would just draw circles on the corner of his paper, scrunch the paper up, throw it away. Anything, because it's quite shaming if we put your writing up on the wall after the lesson. People don't really want to show their writing if it looks terrible. Left-handed students, so you know, writing in Latin or Cyrillic, I guess, is more difficult for left-handed people because you can tend to sort of smudge your writing as you write along, because you write the opposite way from how you would like to write. You know, so it can be a bit more difficult for them. Students have been encouraged to use their imaginations. So we have this kind of quote in English, which is that, you know, all you need is imagination. If you haven't got imagination, use wine. However, of course, children aren't allowed to have wine. So if they don't have an imagination to write about anything, there's really very little that they can do. Again, short attention spans, writing requires concentration. And again, I think this is more of a problem for boys, certainly that I've noticed. There can be a problem sometimes with girls and their writing. Of course, you can have particular problems I mentioned earlier, but a particular problem I've noticed with some girls is they spend a lot of time making sure that everything is beautiful, that it looks amazing, using different colors, and then they don't get things done. All right, I've got some comments here about the sound cutting in and out. So I'm not sure if it's at your end or at my end, but Julie, you may want to turn my video off, and perhaps then just the sound and the presentation will be better. All right. So what can we as teachers do to change these attitudes? So there's three things really that we can do. Find things students like in real life. Okay, I'll try turning off my camera, and please let me know if that improves the sound quality. Otherwise, it must be at your end, okay? All right, so find things that students like in real life. Now, I often use this if, my private passion is opera music, and people often ask me, which opera should I take my child to get them interested in classical music? And I say, well, think about what your kid likes in real life. If they like fantasy, take them to a fantasy opera like The Magic Flute or Wagner. If they like some comedy, take them to a comedy one. If they like fairy tales, take them to a fairy tale one. And I think we can do the same thing with our reading and writing. Build in rewards. So, as I said, students, particularly boys, quite like there to be an element of competition. If there are some incentives to read and write, and it becomes more of a game, more of a competition, then they're more likely to do this. And to also encourage some collaboration. Reading and writing are often seen as individual tasks, but actually we can work together, and we can, take our strengths. So one student might have really nice handwriting, one student might be very imaginative, one student might be very fast at reading, writing, and drawing, and together they can create something that might actually be quite good. Okay, so we're on to the materials that I want to talk about today, which is a series of books, rather old books from the 70s and 80s, called Choose Your Own Adventure. Okay, or they're also called The Secret Path. But they're a series of books which I basically tried to gamify reading. Okay, and what happens is you start the book. They're all in the second person, so you are walking along a corridor, you hear a noise. All right, and then you get to a certain place, and for example, walking down the corridor, and you've got two options. You can turn left or you can turn right. And if you want to turn right, you have to go to page 11. If you want to turn left, you have to go to page 120. And you carry on the book in this way. And sometimes you die, and you either stop or you have to go back to the beginning. Or sometimes you can rectify the situation. So it makes the book a lot more interactive. And I found this a really, really interesting way of working with young learners aged from kind of 9, all the way up to, people who aren't really young learners anymore, but perhaps behave the same way. So these were started by Edward Packard, who went on to work with, things like the Games Workshop, World of Warcraft, and now in video games. So, it's very much the idea that we have with modern video games now, but perhaps a little bit more accessible. Okay, so why are these good materials for the classroom? Okay, they've got limited literary merit, which if I was teaching native speakers would be a downside. There are lots of studies which say that actually just reading for the sake of reading isn't very good. Students need to push themselves. But in terms of just using it to encourage reading in a foreign language, limited literary merit is quite good. So as I said, they're all in the second person, they're all in the present tense, so it's quite easy to read. The vocabulary tends to be quite limited. A lot of these are sort of fantasy books, so you can pre-teach the sort of, magician, wand, those kind of genre words in advance. And then the language itself is quite easy. There are a lot of titles, okay, so, they're not just fantasy, there's science fiction, there's also some kind of traditional sort of school adventures, private English schools, and also some romance stories, so sort of similar to A Heartbreak High, if anybody remembers that Australian TV show from some years ago. Okay, so different genres as well. And they can be used again. So, if people die in the story, you could start again. But also, you don't necessarily have to die in the story. You can have a completely different adventure from reading the book once as you would from reading it a second or third time. So, you can just use the same story more than once. Okay, how to use it in the classroom. So you can use it for individual work. I've used it often for writing. So, the student will read and then they'll write a report on what happened to them in the story. And then they will compare it with another student. And then they will have to present together about what they had that was the same in their adventure and what they had that was different. Group work, so you can also use it to encourage speaking. The students work together, so you can read part of it as a class, you can even read the first part yourself as a teacher, divide the students into groups, and then ask them to decide, do they want to take this option or that option? And this can help them to use language of persuasion, for example, if you're working with flyers. I think we should because. Okay, and then take a vote as a class on what happens next, and then you can read the next passage. Okay, competitions, all right, which group is going to last the longest in the story, which group is going to have the most exciting adventure. Some of the school-based stories, you can actually have a really boring time in this book, whereas basically nothing happens and you end up just stuck in a closet until the end of the story when the hero lets you out. Okay, resources for creative writing, game designing activity. So, you can use this as a basis for students to create their own adventures entirely. They can write the story. They can write part of it until you come up to the point where you have to go left or right, then pass that to another student, and another student decides what happens if you go left, another student decides what happens if you go right. You can even create some board games or even some very basic computer games, which we'll look at a little bit later on. So I find these resources quite useful, and physical copies of these books are quite easy to find here in the UK in charity shops for less than £1. Obviously in Russia you can probably find PDF copies much more easily, I'm sure. If you look for them. So using this idea of creating your own adventure and getting involved in the story as you would in a computer game, what I've got now is a series of other examples which kind of take the same idea, which you can also use in the classroom. So here's one that takes me back, which is BBC Computers. So you may not know this, but as well as being a broadcasting corporation, in the 1970s and early 80s, the BBC produced computers for use in schools. And, this is when floppy disks were actually floppy disks. They were about 15 centimeters by 15 centimeters, and you could bend them. And the graphics were very much as you can see in this picture here. But they did have this really nice game activity where, you know, there would be a series of rooms. Okay. And you'd go through the rooms, and in each room there'd be a puzzle, and you'd have to solve the puzzle. And, you know, if you got it wrong, then you would die, the witch would eat you, or send you back to the beginning, and then you'd have to try again. But what you can also do with this is you can actually create your own adventure. You can start with blank rooms and then decide what happens in them. Now, obviously, these BBC computers are, you know, 30 or 40 years out of date. But if you go to the website, which is mentioned here, bbcmicro.co.uk, you can download these games and templates, and you can use them with your students either online or in the classroom, and create your own game, which is very, very easy. I mean, I was able to do this when I was 8, and I think 8-year-olds now can probably hack into, you know, NASA. So it shouldn't actually take them that much time to create. The idea would be, you know, to use it more for development of, you know, creative skills. All right. The second example is also about games, and this is a TV show in the 80s and 90s called Nightmare, which was a big favorite of mine. And you were in teams, and someone would put on a virtual reality helmet, and then they'd be inside a castle, and you would have to do various things. So, for example, you'd have to walk across a floor with holes in, and if you fell in the hole, you would die. So your friends who were outside would have to say 1 step left, 1 step right, 2 steps forwards, stop, this kind of thing, okay? And if you go on YouTube, you can find many of the clips of this series, and you can even play this with them, so create your own version of Nightmare. Yeah, we've got a nice idea here in chat, which is to you know, create a summary of what you've been reading, which is nice. All right. Next example, which is similar to the Choose Your Own Adventure series, Give Yourself Goosebumps. So Goosebumps was a book series which I used to devour when I was sort of 8, 9, 10 years old. Again, they're not particularly interesting from a literary point of view, but there's a lot of them, and they're slightly scary, or they were slightly scary for children at that time. And your parents let you read about, you know, people being decapitated and eaten alive because they were just so happy you were reading. You could get away with something that perhaps they wouldn't necessarily want you to be reading. And again, as you can see here, choose from over 20 scary endings. So again, you would read the book and find different adventures within that, and you could read it again, or you could talk to your friend who might have read it differently. I know that Goosebumps has sort of been revived recently, and there have been 2 more recent films which your students may be aware of. So I would perhaps recommend using these, if you can find them, as opposed to the Choose Your Own Adventure series, because it has brand recognition. Also, when it comes to creating your own stories, I found that with children, the sort of scarier and more gruesome they're allowed to make the story, the more interested they are in it. I don't know if any of you know, a book series called, I think, Islands, but there's an activity in it where you have to create a holiday island. And I did this with some students, and we still had a lot of time left. And I said, okay, I want you now to create a prison island. And they had so much more fun, and they had so many more ideas for the prison island and all the horrible sort of torture chambers they wanted to create than they had for the holiday island. So a sort of scary story is a nice way into creativity there. All right, this is one you can experiment with remotely. So in 2003, BBC Radio here created an audio drama, a ghost story called The Dark House. And it was interactive. So there were 3 characters, 3 points of view in the story. And what happened is that you texted in the name of the character whose point of view you wanted to hear, and it would switch from whichever character was on before to the next character. So you had 3 strands, 3 first-person accounts of the story running at the same time, and you chose what could happen. So, you know, I think this is nice to sort of listen to in class, and then also then to create your own story. So you can divide the students into 3 groups, and one can write, you know, the story from the point of view of one character, another character, another character. And of course, if you're making your own story, you can have as many characters in it as you want to happen. And of course, you as the teacher can perhaps write the ending or the beginning and the ending to join it all together. Students can even swap characters. All right. So this was a sort of very early way of making drama interactive, but sadly they only ever made one example. It's not always available, but if you look online in audio archives, you can usually find it there. And occasionally it gets repeated on BBC Radio, which means that it's available on BBC iPlayer Radio for 30 days after broadcast. So please keep an eye on it. I think it last appeared 2 years ago. All right, Minecraft. So if you remember the games I showed you before with terrible graphics, it's quite similar to South Park and quite similar to Minecraft, which of course a lot of our students like to do. And it's something to me which seems, you know, completely understandable why kids enjoy playing Minecraft, but they do. But why not use it? So Minecraft now has an education edition, and you can actually try out some of these elements of it for free beforehand. I think it's really nice to use this because then students can actually go home and they can continue creating in Minecraft in English as they go along, and you could find that actually they could you know, log on in the classroom and report on what they've been doing in their Minecraft world, you know, how their farm is going and things like this, and they can do it in English as well. So I would recommend people checking out the education edition or asking your school to invest in the education edition. I think there's a lot of benefits to it. I think it attracts new students, and I think if you've got something like that, you can potentially, you know, increase your prices if you're using something, you know, electronic, which students really like. I think parents might be willing to pay a little bit extra for that, so your school administrators would get something out of it as well. All right, so this one isn't really suitable for kids, but we can use the idea. So if you know Black Mirror, they a couple of years ago produced Choose Your Own Adventure special. So completely modern, completely up to date, where you could choose at different points to do different things or take different paths. And the idea was you could watch it again and again and see more and more and more. Okay, so again, I think, you know, if you're wanting to do some game creating, some you know, using some game software in class, you yourself as the teacher could look at this, could watch this episode, you know, tell your boss, I'm sorry, I'm having to take my lesson planning time to watch TV. It's definitely lesson planning. And you can use it to create something that's more age appropriate and slightly more simple. All right. All right. You know, can be more simple as well. So here we've got, I don't know if it's reached Russia yet, but the latest sort of TikTok sensation here in the UK is this guy. And this guy was a postman, delivering letters until recently, until his TikTok posts became hugely popular. And now he's been interviewed on, you know, all of our national TV stations, also in Australia, New Zealand, America and Canada. And his song is now #1. And what's interesting about him is that he sings songs called sea shanties, which are very old songs which were designed to keep sailors from, you know, from despair, I guess, when they were on boats, but also to work well together. If you're working on a boat and you're having to heave on ropes or heave on oars or hoist sails to get going, you need to do this, you know, in time, in rhythm, and therefore by singing, you can do this. So if you don't know his song that he uses, it goes, soon may the wellerman come to bring us sugar and tea and rum. One day when the tongue is done, we'll take our leave and go. And it's really nice to look at all the videos with so many other people joining in with this song of his. And it got me thinking a little bit about TikTok, but also a little bit about sea shanties and how we can use them. So if we look at 2 more sea shanties here. One, people who come to my talks before may remember this one, The Drop of Nelson's Blood, and What Shall We Do with a Drunken Sailor? So these are also sea shanties, and they're sea shanties which we can change, okay? They're designed to be manipulated by the people singing them. So A Drop of Nelson's Blood, it sounds, okay, it sounds not very nice, but when we're talking about Nelson's blood, we're talking about alcohol, okay? So Nelson's Blood is actually whiskey. And the song's very simple. It goes, oh, a drop of Nelson's blood wouldn't do us any harm, and a drop of Nelson's blood wouldn't do us any harm, and a drop of Nelson's blood wouldn't do us any harm, and we all fall on behind. So we roll the old chariot along, and we roll the old chariot along, and we roll the old chariot along, and we all fall on behind. Okay, so the falling on behind thing is the chorus, but you can change the drink to something else, something that you like. So, you know, if I asked my mum, she would say that her favorite drink is gin and tonic. So it would become, oh, a nice G&T wouldn't do us any harm. Oh, a nice G&T wouldn't do us any harm. Or if you're wanting something non-alcoholic and Russian, we could have, oh, a nice glass of kvass wouldn't do us any harm. Oh, a nice glass of kvass wouldn't do us any harm. And it could be food, it could be clothes, it could be anything. And, you know, you can again make this a competition. You can ask students to write their own and then say, we're going to choose the 6 best and sing this in our song. Okay, and what's good, of course, is the song should get faster. So it should go, and we roll the old chariot along, and we roll the old chariot along, and we roll the old chariot along, and we all fall on behind. Okay, which is really nice to do. And then the most famous, I think, of sea shanties is What Shall We Do with a Drunken Sailor? Okay, so of course, you know, sailors like to drink, but we need to make sure that they're ready to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and do various things. So, you know, basically the song is about punishments that the sailor will receive. So it starts, you know, what shall we do with a drunken sailor? What shall we do with a drunken sailor? What shall we do with a drunken sailor early in the morning? Hooray, and up she rises, hooray, and up she rises, hooray, and up she rises early in the morning. and then the punishments start. Shave his belly with a rusty razor, shave his belly with a rusty razor, shave his belly with a rusty razor, early in the morning. Okay, so various horrible things that could happen to him. Some of them are a bit more risque. One of the verses is, put him in a bed with the captain's daughter, put him in a bed with the captain's daughter, put him in the bed with the captain's daughter, early in the morning. So you can interpret that in two different ways. Perhaps it's about what the captain will do to the sailor when he finds this out, or maybe there's something particularly wrong with the captain's daughter. But you can change this into a sort of song about, what shall we do with the difficult student? What shall we do with the difficult student? Or what shall we do if we don't do our homework? What shall we do if we don't do our homework? What shall we do if we don't do our homework? Early in the morning. Okay. You know, and then they can come up with some. And I've actually used that song to come up with the sort of list of class rules and responsibilities at the beginning of the year. And again, the more sort of disgusting or horrible or scary these punishments are, the more the kids enjoy making them, and they like to kind of riff off each other's and try to make it even worse. So you know, the poor sailors we've had, you know, having arms and legs chopped off, but of course, you know, Nelson didn't have all his arms and legs or eyes, and he still became famous. So I think that works well. But yeah, so singing together, it's a nice way to do it, but singing together and creating your own versions of the song is really good. You know, someone's here, so used pretty rarely, unfortunately, now. You know, I have lessons with kids now online, and singing on Zoom is terrible. I don't really recommend it altogether. But actually I found it works quite nicely with the students who don't like to sing, because they could come up with a good idea, and then a student who likes to sing, or even me, we can sing what they've written. And you know, I think actually especially smaller children, they really like to hear you as an adult sing the song that they've created in that way. And I've done it with that kind of stop-start feature. They can say, you know, do it louder, do it quieter, do it higher, do it lower. And again, that's sort of giving them some abilities to create during the song making process. All right, so I think the conclusion there really is, we've got Mary Poppins here, and it's a spoonful of sugar. If you know the song, just a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down, the medicine go down, the medicine go down. All right, which is if we turn, you know, reading and writing and sort of group work, group discussion, into a game, into a competition, into something where students can say something that's maybe a bit icky, a bit disgusting, a bit kind of horror-esque, then they don't realize that what they're actually doing is, you know, reading and writing and creating in English. It's a little bit like, you know, hiding vegetables in children's food. You know, in that way, I think it works really well. And you know, so I would just say give it a try. You know, try with the creating your own adventure. You know, I've given you some examples there: the original Choose Your Own Adventure series, the Goosebumps series, the Black Mirror episode, which you can watch yourself. I know Black Mirror is very popular anyway. Unfortunately, I think you probably have to, you know, actually watch it on a proper platform, because if you watched it somewhere else, then obviously you'd be getting a particular version. You wouldn't be able to choose the different options that you can. which is a shame. Yeah, we've got rounds are nice, so songs in a round are nice. But again, if you can get people to change the song, then that would be really good. I know often when I do these seminars, I end up doing a bit of singing, but I do think it really helps, especially if students are writing the songs, because someone could be good at singing and have no imagination, and someone can have a good imagination but be no good at singing. I think creating stories, creating games, computer games, even the very, very simple ones, or using Minecraft, it is collaborative. And although there is a competitive element, what you tend to find is, as opposed to kind of, running 100 meters, it's not about you yourself being the fastest. It's about making sure that your game is the best game. And that's how you win, is by, being the best, by investing your time and energy into it, which I think works really well. All right. So that's me coming to the end of my session. Here's just a sample of those books that I mentioned there. I have no idea if you can find these books in PDF or on VK, because I have a selection of my own here. But my sense is that you can, and you can definitely find the Goosebumps series on VK. If anybody wants to get in touch with me, in particular about something, I still have my drama@linguist.org email, which I check occasionally. Just finally to say, so I know that the tasks that I've said today, they don't kind of pick up on particular areas of the exams, about the reading and writing parts of the exams. What I would say, though, is that what I often find is that if you push students a lot more in class, when you actually come to the reading and writing parts of the exam, it's so much easier, okay? If you've done something difficult, to go back to something simple, it's like nothing at all. So we can actually spend less time on these rather boring exam activities if your students are much better at reading and writing than they need to be for that particular level. So I've got some questions here. Yeah, so somebody's posted the link to the BBC micro site, and I would recommend those games. They're very, very simple, and you can use them with sort of any level, and you can take them at how you find them. Really. Otherwise, it's not really questions there. My camera back on to say thank you and goodbye. It's really nice to still be involved in some way with you guys in Russia. It's about a year ago I was there at the BKC conference in Moscow, and I had a wonderful time. And I hope it's not too long before I'm able to visit Russia again face to face. I see we have some other people from Armenia as well. It's on my list of places to visit also, so I hope I'll be able to go there again soon. All right, thank you very much. And I guess it's time for me to stop broadcasting and time for Julia to introduce the next speaker. So goodbye.
Thank you, Ian, for this inspiring session. Great ideas and really practical advice. Thank you. I see so many wonderful comments in the chat box. Thanks, thanks, thanks. Now it's time to speak about books, about preparation materials for Cambridge English qualifications, and about maximizing students' confidence. I'm happy to welcome Angela Tatosyan, our colleague from Cambridge University Press. Angela, hello, can you hear me? Angela, we cannot hear you. I see that
What about now? Can you hear me and see me?
Yes, yes, now I can hear you, I can see you. Dear friends, please put a plus in the chat box if you can hear Angela well.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. I think I'm going to switch off my video because we could see that it kind of hinders the sound. All right.
All right.
If you do not mind. Okay, great. Thank you very much, Julian. Thank you very much, colleagues. And I think I will switch off my video so that you can hear me very well. And I would appreciate if you, okay, thank you very much for everybody for attending this slot. And I'm very, very happy that you managed to join this webinar. Colleagues, I am Angela Tatosyan, and I have been working with Cambridge University Press for the last 10 years. Today, I'm going to because there is not quite a lot of time, but there is quite a lot of information that I would like to share with you. And we are going to look at some ways to encourage learner autonomy in the classroom in order to make learning better and more effective experience. And I think that because I most of the time got lots of inquiries about the CUP digital resources, I thought that it would be helpful for you to know at least what resources are there available for you and for your learners and where you would be able to access them. I hope I will manage. And if you have got any questions, I would be happy to address them at the end of my presentation. And I would start with a quote from our outstanding author, Herbert Buchter, who said that language learning is not just about languages, it's about how the brain remembers best and about the content that appeals to the student. And what is important as our teacher's role, helping our students to feel they can do it. And I think this is actually crucial because without the outcome, without the progress, it doesn't make quite a lot of sense, our teaching experience. And if we think about English language teaching, now we are not just teaching English. We are helping our learners to develop all sorts of skills. For example, creative thinking, critical thinking, digital literacy, how to collaborate, how to communicate effectively, and how to learn. And I think that these skills will be developing in other school subjects too. But and they are not so specific to learning a language, but they are all relevant in terms of language learning. And I think that this slide shows Cambridge Framework for Life Competencies. This is something that Cambridge focuses currently, and the main focus is developing the whole child. The framework actually divides the 21st century skills into two broad categories, thinking and learning skills and social and emotional skills. Certainly, different course books may integrate the life skills into the course by breaking them down and including specific activities that learners can do to develop the skills. All of these areas play a role in making our learners more effective. But because we do not have quite a lot of time, probably we will focus on two or three of them, how much we'll manage to. And I would like us to think about methodology a little bit. How is the learner-centered approach different from learning-centered approach? The next slide offers you the ideas. I would like you to probably choose 3 that are more relevant or they are more important for you personally in your teaching situation and type them in the chat box. Just, I would appreciate if you would share your idea. So we have got 8 ideas here. Could you please choose 3 and write the numbers in the chat box? Okay, can't see anybody. Okay, important in learning or all right, thank you. So everybody mentions number 1 and 4. Okay, 4 seems to be more people mentioning 1 and 4. Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, colleagues. Yeah, lots of opportunities for speaking practice. I would agree. Actually, this, as I already mentioned, that these might be true to your personal teaching situation. And lots of opportunities for speaking practice is something certainly is quite important, where students practically demonstrate what they have learned. And I would absolutely agree with you. And certainly getting learners to develop their thinking skills is also quite important skill, because they would be using their metacognitive skills, dealing with different academic hurdles, problems, wherever, in later life probably. So it was through reduction of these ideas that probably I will speak about the examples, how the coursebook may power up your students' learning through through some of the examples and coursebook structure that offers one of our new titles, relatively new titles, Power Up. So it's about, the title is also quite illustrative, as it says, powering up. It's about boosting and powering up children's confidence, helping them become future ready, become confident and effective learners, and being confident in communicating their opinions and understanding the opinions and feelings of others. So these are all important Cambridge life competencies, but they are also important in language learning as well. So the main focus here certainly is a student learning approach, that because we put the children at the center of their learning journey. And this is in practical setting means that we create learning environment which allows children to demonstrate their learning at every moment as an individual and as a member of a collective, as a member of a team. Certainly the benefits of collaboration and effective communication embodied in the mission feature. As you can see here, the example, create a jungle adventure park. So throughout the unit, the students work at times individually, sometimes collaboratively, to complete stages of the mission, which work towards the mission complete final. So, and certainly the scaffolded approach to a collaborative task gives the students lots of opportunities to use what they have learned and personalize their learning. Other key competencies that you can see on this slide are the competencies that are integrated within the book. They are a combination of knowledge, skill, and attitudes. The Cambridge, as we said, that we are, if we want our learners to be successful and effective, probably I will go back and quote one of, again, outstanding authors, Jack Richards, who says that a learner-oriented approach or learner autonomy refers to the principle that learners should take a maximum amount of responsibility for what they learn, and they know how they learn it. So in that sense, the mission feature in the book actually starts with setting setting goals, which is quite important even at this early age, that the learners understand what are they going to learn, and later they are going um, to see how the learning outcomes have been achieved by completing the tasks, either individual or as a team. And later, it is also important that the learners have opportunities to self-assess their progress. Um, and certainly, it is also important that the teacher provides meaningful feedback. What is important here, it is like a twofold approach. It is not only helping the students to understand and to take more responsibility for their learning and for the outcomes, but it also helps the teacher, because we as teachers, professionals, we are also learning, and by observing and looking how with uh, the students' progress, with our learners' progress, we can then adjust and we can feel the students' needs, so that the adjustments that we make are going to encourage and to motivate our learners to achieve better results. So it is both students and the teachers benefit when we are setting goals and trying to achieve these goals and analyzing how successful we have done that. So speaking about the mission, it is a multi-stage project-based task. In Power Up, we have got like 3 stages where learners use the language learned. It might be the vocabulary or the grammar or the functional language that they have learned. They have to use that language to be able to complete the mission for each stage. So here is an example of a unit, and you can see that the mission is for a very simple one, probably because this is taken from the starter level. Organize a picnic. And in this unit, I will, so from the very beginning, it will be absolutely clearer to set the goal, find out what food my friends like. And the second, buy food for our picnic, write and share a recipe, and have a picnic. So this is how it looks, the mission feature in the book. And now, if we move on to the next one, let's see how we scaffold and what we provide, how we arrange the resources so that the students set the objectives and they start to use that language with every step. So the most of the time, the language is presented or introduced via an impactful visual, first, which is first out of 5 unit videos. And then we move on to vocabulary 1, which introduces the words and concepts for the unit, and the language is presented through a colorful cartoon, which aims to contextualize the language. The learners first see and listen to the language, then reproduce the language, and finally there is a consolidation task. Then there is the vocabulary second. Is like the second chunk of the vocabulary that the students learn, and it is activated through a song. The vocabulary is presented through a listening task. Both the song and the story are also animated to attract student attention. Then we have got grammar and mission 2, which is introduction of the further language via a listening task. Then we have got cross-curricular and mission stage 3, with a clear video which helps to introduce the topic, and the focus is on other subject areas which relate to the focus of the unit. The literature section has an audio and also aims to help develop the narrative and bring the story to life. The second lesson contains follow-up activities using reading, writing, speaking, and listening skills, which help to develop learners' emotional competencies. And certainly, as we already said, the new titles, the new course book helps to build exam confidence as well. And so the next lesson is exam practice. Each lesson focuses on listening and speaking, or reading and writing skills, and it helps learners to develop test strategies and provides tips. The lesson contains exam-type tasks to help familiarize the learners, as this is the key to success. And unit review and mission in action. At the end of the unit, there is unit review and the final mission. This sounds very, we help the students step by step master the language, demonstrate their whatever they have learned through personalizing the language through different activities that they complete either individually or as a part of a team. So let's now look at the exam preparation. It might sound challenging, but exam, as you can see from this diagram, it prepares, PowerUp prepares from starters to preliminary qualifications, and exam techniques and exam vocabulary and grammar are introduced and recycled through the student book. And the students, after practicing it, they have got the idea, they have got absolute familiarization with task types. Then this is, as you can see, it is like baby steps. And one more key idea in the new generation of course books that Cambridge tries to provide, it gives extra challenging higher level vocabulary, higher level language, because when we know more, it is quite obvious that we would succeed at lower level exams. If you and here you can see that in the movers level, we start learning flyers, grammar, and language. So, which means that we are maximizing exam preparation by giving more and challenging our students. Another example on this slide, you can see that what is all the vocabulary and grammar which has been introduced and recycled through the student book is then mirrored in the activity book with fuller exam technique activities, this time exposing the students to the official format. Again, the main idea is that familiarity means that children automatically know what to do when they see the activity like this. And as a final step, the PowerUp test generator includes full exam practice tests, which gives teachers the option to do a full test all at once. So just an example, as we already mentioned, that it needs time to develop certain skills of self-reflection and analyzing our progress, our achievements. And this is done through certain activities in the activity book, where you can see from this slide that I want to, at the beginning of the unit, they said how many new words they would like to learn, whether it is about animals or food or school or hobbies. So how many new words from the unit I know and how many new words I would like to learn. So understanding, analyzing, and reflecting on and recording their progress, which is absolutely important. As we said, that if we would like to bring up and develop learning skills, then we have to give more responsibility to our learners for their progress. So this is an example from the activity book to help to reflect on their success, on their achievements and outcomes. So, and another example from the activity book, as we said, that exam tasks are, we have the icon, the wily monkey, which highlights that exam task. This is a reminder both for the parent, teachers and the children, and step by step completion of familiar tasks would help children to build confidence at exam situations. And certainly the activity book also offers a real exam type task at the end of each unit. So it's not only Power Up that offers exam preparation for Cambridge qualifications. The other titles, some of you might be already familiar with these, but in case you are not, so there are other titles depending how intensive or how challenging your courses are, or how much time you have got to prepare for Cambridge qualifications. There is a wide choice of resources for your print and online. So probably Kids Box is the best seller because this is more, let's say, concise course, general English and exam preparation course with a two-book approach for each exam level. And moving to this slide again offers you the whole range of print resources that are available for A1 starters, A1 movers, and A2 flyers exam preparation. The new 6-level course, which I think my colleague and Robinson is going to highlight more into in tomorrow's sessions. It's a new 6-level based exam course. I'm not going to speak about it a lot because you will be able to hear more from my colleague tomorrow. And I'm moving on to the digital resources, which for primary, all the titles that you can see here have huge digital support. And I would also provide the links for you at the end of my presentation, and I hope you will receive the slides later on, as my colleague Yulia has already mentioned. And I do hope that you would be able to find lots of useful information there. So there are lots of digital resources, both for learners and for teachers. And I am going mostly to focus on the digital resources, probably for the teachers. There is a presentation plus, test generator, teaching with. Teaching with is a module. If you would like to start teaching with one of the books, like with Power Up, there is teaching module for the teachers on the platform, which would help you to understand the methodology, to understand the approaches that are used, and how to use these different techniques and strategies to teach with Power Up, so that you enjoy your teaching and you know how you are teaching, and there would be more reward. There are also possibilities if you would like to think about professional development. Cambridge offers lots of teacher development resources as well. There are recordings of COP webinars and ebook. I know that most schools, most teachers would like to switch to ebooks or tablets. So these are the digital books on tablets. And there are also Cambridge Online Dictionary is a great resource which you might want also to consider. And there is also World of Better Learning blog. So I'm going to just very briefly describe all these resources and hopefully provide some links for you. Okay, so ebooks are available from a Cambridge bookshelf. It's an app which you can download, and then the codes are going. You will need codes to be able to activate the digital books for your tablets. So let's move on to the platform, which is quite, I think, important part if you are looking for online teaching. So digital resources for primary, please remember this link. This is a digital platform for all our course books you can see here. And as I said, there are always modules for the teachers before you start teaching, or even if you have already started teaching, you might want to understand more on the methodology, on different ways of how to introduce the material or how to activate, how to practice, what types of games or resources are there for you. You can always take teaching with modules. So, and by the way, you can contact directly to me, again, directly me or my colleagues, and we would be able to provide you with more detailed information. Here are some slides which would give you some taste what it means to work, what types of activities there are on Cambridge Learning Management System. And as here you can see power up level 1, you always can activate the product. The product is the course of the course book, and what you would be able, so all the resources on the platform are free for the teachers. But if you want your students to join the class, they would need to have an activity book with the code. So, and this is the most important thing, because each code in this activity book is unique for each student. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to follow their progress. So otherwise, if you are a private teacher or you might have your account, you can register and create your account. Or if you are a school or an organization, you can ask for setting a school account, and then you can add teachers and students certainly to creating classes. So some examples of what is there for the students and how we can help them to activate the language that they have learned. Here you can, I'm not sure whether you would be able to see, but there are different activities, vocabulary, grammar activities, reading activities and games. For the students, and as soon before you start the class, normally after you create a class, you log all the activities so that your students wouldn't be doing the activities chaotically, but when you open the activities for them. So here is an example of an activity. Watch the video. Which two things do you see? There are video activities. Besides vocabulary activities, like matching the words and labeling the pictures. So these are with the elements of games, and it is fun, and it helps the students to progress, and it gives you the understanding how well they are mastering the new words, how well they can use the new words. There is also a project work here. Label the objects in a room. Create the projects. It says choose a room in your house. Take a photo of the room and label the room and the things in it. And when you have done your picture, submit to your online portfolio. So all the projects might be submitted, and the teacher also would have a view how well or how we are also helping our students, as you remember, to build, to become creative and to take more responsibility for their learning. And these different activities are part of what is done, what is offered to help the teacher, to help their students build these different life skills. So moving back to digital resources, another important resource is the Presentation Plus. Presentation Plus is a great tool, and it actually offers all the resources that you can see on this slide: pupils book, activity book, teacher's book, class CD, video, extra resources, interactive games. Everything is in one place, and it is just a great resource both for online teaching and online and offline. Presentation Plus you can use for presenting the new language, new grammar, sharing the video, audio, and doing interactive exercises. So it's a really great resource, and it might be either a physical CD-ROM or it might be accessed through a code. So again, if you have got any questions, where, how, and why, you can always write. I will provide my email address again at the end of this presentation. You are most welcome, and I'd be happy to help you. So some example what a Presentation Plus actually is. You can see here a pupil's book from Power Up Level 6 Presentation Plus. So the digital book is there, and the activities, you can see the arrow near each activity. It will show that this activity might be done also in interactive mode. And here is the example, and there's the drop-down menu. So it would be great if you have an interactive whiteboard, you are teaching in a face-to-face situation. You can, you know, it might be a competition or any other form of activity, group activity, or individual activity. So the pupils book, activity book, all actually is in one place. Teacher's book here, and the games for each unit. And if we are speaking about the games are also built in a way that it offers a more challenging level, and the students can choose starting from a very simple one, basic level, to difficult, from medium and more challenging levels. Okay. So, and links, useful links, which you might need again for lesson planning, is provided there. Speaking about another important resource, that because we are shifting, moving from physical CD-ROMs, there is a digital library for teachers, which is called esourcecambridge.org. You can see here. And it's the place where we can activate the code to all these resources, to Presentation Plus. For example, you can again use this Cambridge eSource, this link. If you have got a teacher's book, it might be the code in the teacher's book, or if not, then you can again contact me. Certainly, you need to adopt the book before you are able to request for a code. Again, an example from a Power Up Level 1. on eSource with an activation code in the teacher's book or the code that we might provide you with, you can access Presentation Plus for different operational systems, and you can also have student book audio, activity book class audio, teacher's resource book again, and test generator. So there are lots of resources available with the code on the eSource. Another link for you to note down is our site, cambridge.org/rule, Cambridge English. As you can see, it's possible to access to our catalog and have, if you would like to get informed about our upcoming conferences, webinars, you would always find the information there. And there is also planning for our courses, because most of the schools, again, asking for planning if it is possible to get. So it's all there. You might want to visit our site and see what else is available for you. So as I promised, there are some useful links at the end of my presentation for our site for the Russia, for news, events, product information, and resources you will be able to find there, and free online resources you can see also here. Another slide also would be, as I said, it is also possible for professional development courses to find information. There are actually different intensity courses from 5 to 10 hours long, which would allow, after completing the course, you would be able to get a certificate as soon as you complete the course. And there is also a link to our webinars. So let's move on to the next slide. And as I said, CLMS Primary, just to again sum up, CLMS Primary, again, I remind you that this platform is free for the teachers. You just need to register if you do not have your account. You may be an individual teacher or a school. It doesn't matter. If it is a school, we would set an campus school account, and then the teachers might be added to it. If you want to create a class, then your students would need activity book with code, and then you will set the deadlines for completing those gamified, let's say, activities, vocabulary, grammar activities. There are, as you could see, there was a video activity, so lots of them. Besides, you can, Cambridge Free English Dictionary and Thesaurus, this is also a great resource where you can create your word list. Very useful link if you are teaching either young learners, teenagers, or adults. It would be great. Please visit. Cambridge Bookshelf is the place, as I said, if you would be interested to activate codes for your tablets. And App Store here. World of Better Learning is a new digital area for you because they offer not only useful tips but also useful articles. You will find lots of things there on different methodological issues. Some of and by the way, here we have got a Cambridge.org COVID support link, where, for example, you would like to teach with one of these courses, Kids Book, Superminds, Guess What, or Power Up, and you need some ideas how to teach them online. We have got booklets here published for you, and you can download and find some useful information on lesson structure, lesson plans, and different activities, how to use, for example, Presentation Plus, or how to use the chat box. So very helpful. Certainly, there is the Word Fun World app for which again gives a huge amount of information and articles and tips and strategies how to motivate, how to introduce fun and enjoyment in your teaching. So all the resources again are here you need for preparing pre A1 starters, A1 movers, and A2 flyers. All right, I think I have almost completed my presentation, and the last slide, I just wanted to say that whatever mode you use, either digital or traditional, we would always be happy to consult and to help you with all the resources that are available for you. Please just get in touch and ask your questions, and I would be happy to answer to your questions, even if it is not really related only to the young learners, but to all the levels. Okay, colleagues, this is it from me, and I think I have got just enough time to answer to your questions. Okay, if there are any. And Yulia, probably you have been following the questions and you would be able to help me to moderate. All right, thank you very much, colleagues. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Angela. That's really great to see how many useful digital resources are now available. And well, there is some the big number of different materials could be found on the website or in some catalogs provided by Cambridge University Press. So I've noticed that your email address on the slide is not really visible, so I copied it into the chat box. Dear friends, if you have some questions and want to contact Angela a little bit later, please use this email address. And in the chat box, there were a couple of questions about the codes. Angela, could you repeat the information about the codes, how teachers can get them?
Okay, most of the teacher's book would have the code inside. For example, for our Cambridge site, if you are teaching with one of the titles, let's say Fun Skills or Power Up, it will have either the code inside or it will give you directions to contact your local Cambridge representative for the information. So please follow the notes in the teacher's book, and we would be happy to help you. So if you are actually, my colleagues work in different in St. Petersburg, in Samara, and in Moscow, but we would be happy to support you wherever you are.
Thank you, Angela. Dear friends, if you have any questions, please put them in the question box or in the questions section. There is a question from Yelena. Can we have email address? Yes.
Actually, my email address was on my first slide. So if you will be sharing my address, my slides with the colleagues, then they would have that information.
Yes, sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. A huge thank you to wherever you are. I'm really delighted to be part of this seminar and conference today. I wish you all the very best, and please feel free to get in touch with any questions that you have got. So take care, and thank you, and bye for now.
Thank you, Angela. So now let's talk about teaching listening skills and speaking skills. I'm happy to welcome the next presenter, Claire Barnes, Cambridge Assessment English presenter and teacher trainer. Claire, please join me.
There I am.
Hi, Claire.
Hi.
Happy to see you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine, thank you. I'm fine. The sun is shining here.
I see.
Fairly miraculous.
Okay, that's great. Can you see your slides?
I can. I just need to remember how I have to use the buttons on the keyboard to move. Yes.
Yes, there are some arrows to change the slides.
Okay.
You move your mouse and the control
Okay.
panel appears.
Okay. Right. There we go. Okay. Yeah. Got it. Ha. Sorry. Allow me to get excited. It doesn't happen often.
Thank you, Claire.
Oh, was that it? Was that the introduction? Yes? Right. Thank you, Julia. That's very kind of you. Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this third slot this afternoon. We're talking about teaching listening skills to young learners. Okay. And hang about. Sorry, somebody's just messaged me, and I think he's forgotten that he's been moved. Okay. Right. So, moving on. Yes, we're teaching listening skills to young learners today because we have to start somewhere, and I think it's important to have an understanding of what it is that we're doing with these young learners. Okay. So, I hope to be covering this basically. It may sound a little theoretical, but I'm expecting you to respond to me as usual via the chat box. All right, and there we go. Stop him. Right. So let's start. What do we think we know about young learners and their listening skills? Okay, now the next few slides, I've got some statements about young learners and their listening skills. And I'd like you, please, now in the chat box to comment. Do you agree with what the statement says? Whilst young learners, and we're talking here young learners, so you know, up to the age of 10, 11, 12, aren't we? So, do they really absorb language around them? What do you think? I'm getting lots of hellos. Thank you, everybody, for hellos. Aha, somebody's agreed. Okay. Aha. I'm waiting for a few more to agree or disagree before I move on. Okay. Right. Okay. When you say you agree, come on. If they don't get the message, they don't absorb it. Good point. Thank you very much. They absorb everything that is around them. Do they really, though? Okay. Can you stop simply agreeing and disagreeing and actually comment on why you think what you think? It's easy to agree now, isn't it? That would be terribly, terribly boring. Okay, depends on the child. I would quite agree. So many things depend on the child, but also on the people around them. Yeah, good point there from Olga. You know, learning happens when you understand. So you do have to understand what's going on. I think also the point here is that maybe we also need to think about that. Okay, and I put some more information up there. Yeah, for us to think about. Yeah, because while we do seem to think that young learners absorb a new language more easily, well, actually, if we think about it, do they actually listen that well in their own language in terms of, do they automatically hear everything that's said to them, or do they keep switching off and focusing on other things, you see? And I think we all have to agree that, yeah, you sometimes have to address a child 2 or 3 times, even in their own language, before they pay attention. Yeah. And therefore, we have to try and make take account of that. We shouldn't really make assumptions. It's a big assumption to make that, for example, young learners do not require any support, because yes, they do require support. And if we don't give them that support at this very young age, then it's just going to get more and more difficult, and we'll end up with teenagers and young adults failing, for example, any kind of exam, any kind of listening test, simply because we have not given the kids the support they need at this time. Yeah, various other people have suggested, so Penny suggested that it's simply, we think they absorb language simply because they are exposed to this language so much more and so much longer than perhaps older people would be. And that is why they seem to pick up things very quickly, where in point of fact, they just spend a lot of time around adults that talk. It's an interesting idea, isn't it? Yeah. Mackay says that, well, you know, children don't simply absorb, they need to engage with their language environment in strategic ways. Okay, so yeah, there are all sorts of things going on there. Okay, right. Moving on. What about this statement? Again, in the chat box, please. If you agree, say why. And if you disagree, say why. Yeah. Young learners don't need to be explicitly taught listening skills. Yeah. Good point. Good point, Olga. Exactly. Even in L1 or the native language, you do train children to listen and to pick up specific information. And we have to remember that it's not just about understanding every single word in every single case. Yeah. It is a skill that needs to be of listening skills, because there are different sub-skills, obviously, are skills that do need to be learned. It's not just a talent, exactly. Okay. Teaching them some useful techniques. Oh, yes, yes, absolutely. Why not? Okay. Ja. Can be the right and literary way of speaking. Not quite sure I understand your comment there. But well, there we have it. Okay, so we should remember that you know, okay, yes, young learners do benefit from an integrated approach and generally appear to acquire skills holistically, but and this means that in many cases in course room class books and so on and so forth, that listening skills are not specifically targeted as such. But that does not mean that we should not consciously plan our lessons. Because we need to think about the aims and the strategies. We need to think about, okay, am I listening to get an overview here, or am I listening for specific information? And I also need to think to how I'm going to check that. How do I know what they've heard? How do I know that the children have understood? So I have to think about ways in which the children can respond to what they've heard. Whether, you know, how would you make people respond to a listening task? Do you just sit there, okay, you've listened, did you understand? Yes. And then what happens? Okay, questions? A test. A test. Poor kids. Yeah, you need to ask them questions, I think, to check how much they've understood. And how you ask those questions is also going to depend largely on what's happening in general in the classroom. So is it necessarily going to be questions, or can there be other ways for the children to respond to what they've listened to? Using feel in the grapes tasks. Oh, fill in the gap. Sorry, I'm a bit slow in my reading here today. Terribly sorry. Yeah, fill in the gaps. Matching drawing. Lovely. I like that. Exactly, drawing. Yeah, because if you're using written words, then you're actually challenging the young learners, some of whom, if they're very young still, might not be very confident in what they're reading. They might not be fully literate, and so therefore asking them to respond to questions, to written questions, is probably not really going to work very well, and is not going to improve their confidence. And that's the great things. Yeah, they can draw what they've heard exactly. They can possibly touch what they've heard online. Obviously, you might have some pictures, and they can annotate on the pictures, or they can indicate in other ways on screen or through the chat box exactly what they've heard. Which picture applies in which case, and so on and so forth, or in the classroom pointing in different directions, or touching whatever, and so on and so on and so forth. So I think it's important that we do need to be more purposeful about how we include listening skills in our classes. It's not merely a test, and this is my problem. Sorry, Angela. This is my problem with many standard course books from all of the publishers, is that basically it's too easy for the teachers to pick up the book and go, oh, this is a listening, oh, there's that task, okay, fair enough, let me play the track twice. And what do you mean you haven't got the right answer yet? And that's a test, isn't it? That's not developing anybody's skills, that's not developing anybody's confidence. Okay, so we have to think about listening in the classroom a lot more carefully than perhaps we have done in the past. Yeah, because if we hit the right task, if we find the right response, and it will vary from student to student. Some kids will enjoy drawing, some will hate it, some will prefer coloring, some will prefer moving things around the desk, some will prefer ordering tasks on screen. As adults, we have different preferences, and the children will also have their different preferences. It's about finding the feedback technique which A, tells you that they've understood, B, the kids enjoy, C, gives them confidence in what they're doing, confidence in not just their listening skills, but also their ability to communicate what they've just heard. And of course, we've got to think about things like concentration as well. We know that kids and concentration is a bit of an issue, almost as much as adults and concentration. Let's be honest about this, okay? So we need to think about this very carefully, yeah? And that's why, if you think about it, as you go through the levels from the very young up to the end of young learners, for example, and you're getting into the teenage area, you notice that the complexity of the tasks increases, doesn't it? And why would it increase? Well, simply because the child is developing cognitively and is in a better position to understand more of the complex tasks. There's no point making a 6-year-old do tasks which are designed for a 12-year-old, because it's likely not then to be a language problem, is it? It's much more likely to be a problem that the child is cognitively not ready for that type of task. So all kinds of things to think about there. Okay, right. Right, let's move on. I've got another of those little statements. What do we think about this one? Listening activities are stressful for young learners. Why do you think so? In the chat box, please, people. Oh no, they're fun. All right, okay, good. Yeah, okay. Well, yes, you think they're enjoyable, but are you 100% sure? Can you be 100% sure that listening activities are not stressful for every single one of your young learners. Yeah, absolutely. To assent on the topic, maybe on the task. You remember yourself as a child, Angelina. Well, that's great fun. And did you enjoy listening tasks in the classroom? Question is why they should be stressful. Well, because, yeah. Yeah. Exactly. I think it's part of the problem why, as teachers, we tend to think that listening is fun is because we're in the classroom with the children, acting up, if you will, trying to make it sound fun. But if we sit down and actually challenge the children to tell us whether they've understood or not, then yes, it becomes very, very stressful. It can become very stressful because these young learners are still developing, aren't they? Yeah. It's not just a language thing for them. You've got to think about cognitive skill development. So think about it. Okay, so they've got to listen for a start. They have to understand, they have to process, they have to try and remember, and then they have to process their response, and they have to make that response, and then they have to try not to forget all of that, all at the same time, which is why kids sometimes just tune out completely, because they need space. Yeah, very simply, they need space. And I think another thing that those of us who teach in private language schools or tutor kids forget is they've spent all day listening to other people. Many other people that want them to do stuff. They're just tired, you know. Don't you get tired sometimes listening to people? Of course you do. I think also we forget certain other things. I'm going to move on so you can see some of this on screen. Yeah. I know that the course books tend to come with pictures, which is great. But, you know, given concentration and so on and so forth, I think we need to be extra careful about the visual content, about providing the correct visual content, something that is going to appeal to our students, to give them a reason as well. Because, again, if whatever it is you want them to listen to, they don't like it, they're not interested in it, they wouldn't listen to it in L1, why should they listen to it in L2? Yeah, you complain incessantly about your teenagers who refuse to show enthusiasm or interest for pretty much anything, because that's what teenagers do. But on the other hand, are we not expecting them to show interest in things that they really are not interested in? Is it not so true, oh happy teachers out there, that we're expecting our students to be interested in the same things that we're interested in and in the same way? Or how can we possibly define that with children? So we need to think of all of these things, yeah, when we're thinking about the listening task, and not just go, oh yeah, it's in the book, it's on page 29, let me do it as it says in the book. I think that's a wasted opportunity, don't you? And I know we're all busy teachers, but still. Okay. Now, moving on. Why do we want young learners to listen? In the chat box, please. Why do we want them to listen at all, at any stage of our lessons? Perhaps you don't want your students to listen. Okay, that's a very, very big reason there. Yeah. Okay. Let's split things down into individual bits. Why do you use to be able to respond? Okay. Develop listening skills. Very big thing there. Let's be more concrete. When you say develop essential skills, what do you mean exactly? Oh, yeah. You're all being very, very teacherish about this, which is fine because we're all teachers. But let's just sit down and think in each concrete situation. Why do we want to listen and react? Okay, fair enough. Yeah, to react. Okay. That's how we learn language. Well, that's one of the aspects. Practice the sounds. Ooh, okay. To establish context, the contact. That's a good point there, Melania. Thank you. Okay, yeah. Okay, provide a background. Absolutely. To improve one's accent. Connected speech. Everybody's favorite. What about it? Exactly. Possibly to be able to understand connected speech, but then, yeah. Okay. Right. That's an interesting statement there, Irina. We want to be more significant. Okay. I don't think we should go down that path just yet. To practice authentic pronunciation. Liana, nice. What is authentic pronunciation? I'm not sure how you're defining authentic pronunciation. Well, if you want them to take part, certainly they need to. Your sound lessons will need to have listening and Mine is authentic. Well, you see, and there you have the problem, Olga, because okay, I was born and brought up in the northeast of England. This is not how people speak in the northeast of England, for a start. I'm currently located here in Germany, and because we're in lockdown, I'm not actually talking to anybody except people online. So and my voice, my accent changes. So if I'm talking for hours or days on end with a Scottish colleague, as I have been for the last 5 weeks, then sometimes it goes a little Scottish. If I spend lots of time talking to American colleagues, then it can go a little American. So what is authentic? Come on. I think authentic is a multifaceted thing, very difficult to define. And there are many different examples. So yes, we have to have them listen, but don't we want them to listen real life? Absolutely. Yeah, in Russia and China, they will understand what they understand. It's a whole different concept, Olga. Whole different concept. So, yeah, as you can see on your screen right now, we want young learners to listen for many, many different reasons. So, for example, yeah, you can see there, first of all, to get their attention for a start, so that we can actually do something. We also want our learners to listen, to get them to notice language. Is it not true that we often use audio text to highlight new language? So we want them to notice it. We want them to, yes, we want them to hear a model. It's not the only model, but yes, we want them to hear that model. Yes, we want them to develop all of the aspects of language that you've been talking to them. But there are other reasons, yeah? So you, in a young learner lesson, I think it's irrational to expect young learners to sit still for 45 minutes or even 60 minutes. Because that's not the nature of the young learner. They have to stand up, they have to jump up and down, they have to race around, and they have to do stuff. So you want them to listen to settle them or to stir them, depending on the stage of the lesson as well. You can use listening also to, for example, if there's stories that you have on audio, it's useful to revise, to recycle vocabulary or structures or concepts and so on and so on and so forth. And also by listening, as a number of you have mentioned, by listening, it's part of communication. If we don't listen and don't understand, then we can't communicate with people as well. I think those 2 points at the bottom of the slide there, to build confidence, I think that's very, very important. And I think a lot of damage can be done at this very low level, very young age, if we don't take this development of listening skills in our classrooms very, very seriously. Yeah, lots of the teenagers that come to you for tutoring because they don't understand this or they don't understand that, if you break it down, why don't they understand when people talk to them? Probably because somebody didn't take the time to develop their confidence lower down the scale. And it's very easily done. I mean, you know, you have some questions and you have a class of 15, 20 kids. And, you know, you've got people, like with adults, you've got people, children who are quicker and children who are slower to produce or to participate. And I think a lot of confidence is lost by not allowing everybody to participate at their own speed. And that goes back to the choice of task or feedback. Well, if the teachers lack it, then that's an interesting point, Olga. Question is, why do teachers lack it? Somebody somewhere is clearly saying you're just all not very good, which is not very positive. So I think each of us in our own individual little way have to try and do what we can to overcome our own insecurities, our own lack of confidence, and to pass this on to our learners. And I think we do need to start by sitting down and wondering why, if I have a class of 15 kids, I only ever get responses from 10. What's happening with the other 5? Maybe there are ways in which I can offer them the opportunity to respond in a way that they can handle better, and that will give them the confidence. So, like I say, think about the choice of task, think about how you want people to respond, and think about whether open class feedback, as in, okay, who's got the answer to this, is really the way to go. I would argue that it is not. Also, nominating. What's the point of nominating a child who's going, I might know, but then again, I don't particularly want to be put on the spot right now. Okay. So all of these things, I think we do need to think about, we need to be more aware of, and not just simply accept, oh, this person's weak, you know? Okay. Right. Moving on, keeping one eye on the time. Okay. So how can we help young learners to listen? In the chat box, how can we help young learners to listen? What's the most important thing, first of all, before they listen? Yep, absolutely, scaffolding. Absolutely, get them interested. And there would be various different ways of doing that, yeah? Prediction would be one of them there, Larissa, yes. Pre-teach vocabulary, but not too much. I had a teacher contact me today, and he's supposed to be teaching a lesson at some point on CELTA, and I want to present 12 items of vocabulary. At which point I said, no, you don't. That's just too much to absorb, isn't it? Clear tasks, absolutely. Make sure that whatever you say is very clear. Motivate them, make them interested. Exactly. Okay, exactly. All sorts of useful comments coming in right now. Okay. Yeah. So we need to make them want to listen by choosing either, if we have the choice, if we have the option to choose audio, to choose topics, then clearly we're going to choose things that we know our children are interested in. Or if we do not have that option, then we need to create interest by doing some pre-listening work, which could be prediction in any way, shape, or form. Anything to get them interested in whatever it is they're going to hear. Okay, anything to wake them up, anything that leaves them with a kind of a question. Okay, so are they going to be talking about apples or oranges? To put it very, very basically. Well, I like oranges because they taste better, or I prefer apples because they're da 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 da. And even that level of interest is going to make them listen better. Okay, are we talking about apples or oranges? Okay, and also I think give them a reason to listen. Yeah, it amazes me. I do a lot of teacher training, and it amazes me how many teachers want to simply say things like, "Here's a text, listen." Do you ever do that in real life? Do you listen just because there's noise coming from somewhere? It's snowing and raining. Is it really? Sorry to hear that, Alina. Yeah. Okay. Well, you know, there we go. Okay. Yeah, but I mean, think about it, people. Do you listen to anything unless you have a reason? Really? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Yeah. I would suggest that very, very few people listen to whatever's going on around them simply because they can. They listen possibly because somebody has said, or there's something has been going on that raises their interest. Think about it. You're on the metro in Moscow or wherever, and you know those announcements that come over the Metro PA, they're terribly difficult to understand to start with. Do you automatically go, oh, someone's speaking, must listen? Of course you don't. You sit there and most people are just going, and you only start to listen when you can see on everybody else's faces, oh, something's happened. That's when you start to listen, okay? And I think it's very important that we do give them the reasons there. You need to listen what's valuable for you. I quite agree, Olga, but then how do I know that any one of the 25 people that I might encounter in my daily life are going to say anything that is going to be valuable for me? Yeah, and yeah, if I think it is going to be valuable, then yes, that's the thing, isn't it? Okay, we need to make it comprehensible. We need to make it understandable. We need to keep that anxiety level low. We need to keep confidence high, because obviously we all learn better if we're doing something we are confident with, and if we're doing something which is meaningful and achievable. If it's not achievable, what is my point, essentially? On the metro, yeah, you do have to listen to, that's a good point, Olga, but then again, can you not recognize your metro station by looking out of the window? Yeah, okay, so yeah, we need to do everything we can to make it comprehensible. So we need to check for language. We need to make sure there's lots of familiar language or formulaic language in there that the learners will know, the kids will know. We might have to pre-teach some new vocabulary, but seriously, if there are more than 3 or 4 words, there's too much. Choose something else. Okay, you might want to give lots and lots of pictures and non-verbal clues as well, before and during, preferably. You might want to think, okay, how long is this? And if it's very long, like, you know what concentration span is like, and then you factor in anxiety and stress, and it becomes so much shorter. So if it's going to be longer than, I don't know, a minute and a half, then perhaps you want to cut it down a little bit to make it more manageable for the children. Think of yourselves as adults. you're watching a TED talk. Okay, a 3-minute TED talk is quite, you can just about cope with that, yes? A 5-minute TED talk becomes a little challenging. A 10-minute TED talk, and you think, and it becomes difficult even in L1 to focus for that length of time sometimes. So let's make it a little bit shorter. Okay, yeah, make sure that they know what you want them to do. Make it involving, yeah, as in give them concrete, also physical tasks, if at all possible. Yeah, touch the picture they hear. If you're online, yeah, use the annotation tools to, put the sign on whatever it is they hear. Make it a game. Provide opportunities for those who are still in the silent period. So if they lack confidence or if they lack literacy, perhaps they do prefer to act out what they think they've heard or to draw what they think they've heard. And another big thing, which apparently many teachers don't seem to think about, is giving your learners, even the kids, even the children, let them just talk about what they think they've heard with each other. Why not? Because again, if they can talk to each other, maybe even in L1, there's nothing wrong with L1 at very low levels in the classroom. It just needs to be carefully monitored and carefully managed, okay? So it's something also that adults will be grateful for if you ask them to check with each other what they think they've heard, the answers to the questions or the task, or with children, let them show each other their pictures or whatever it is they've responded to. It gives you that little bit of confidence, because there are some people who probably do have the right answer, but who are personally insecure, who are shy and who don't really want to leap up and down and go, yeah, I have it. Okay, talking to somebody else can increase that confidence, and I think this is a much underestimated thing, much underestimated. What's the word I'm looking at? Quality, skill. Exactly. Yeah. Make it achievable. As we said before, make it achievable. Make sure the task is useful, is understandable. Maybe make your listening shorter, but do it more often. And of course, practice, 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 practice. Okay? If you make a big thing of listening and you go, I don't like doing listening, then that will transfer to the students themselves, to the children. And if you don't like it, then they won't like it, and nobody will get any further. Okay? So in the classroom, she says, still with that eye firmly, we're doing quite well. Okay, I'd like you to look at these options or these ideas in the classroom, and I'd like you in the chat box, please, to try and give me the rationale behind something. So if we focus on listen and draw and color, okay, so obviously listen is the one thing, draw and color. So yeah, it's listening to develop to an extent. We can say it's listening to develop concentration because they have to concentrate on what it is they're hearing in order to draw or color something. You may well be focusing, so listening to focus on specific items, prepositions of place, for example, very popular, or verbs, directions, actions, okay? You're listening also to consolidate what they've heard before, and in a way, you're also listening to settle the children after something more physical that has happened in the classroom, okay? If they're drawing and coloring, then they have to be sitting down or at least focused on whatever it is that they're drawing or coloring, okay? Yeah. So there's all kinds of things like that. And for that, you've got things like picture dictations, putting pictures also, in the right order, but coloring pictures, coloring certain elements of a picture, for example. Color the blue, color the bird in the tree pink, color the bird in the pond blue, or whatever it happens to be, okay? And of course, listening, drawing and coloring is very, very useful for very young learners, for learners whose literacy skills are not that well developed just yet, and for older children, for more complex tasks, as in following the route on a map, for example, which tends to challenge a lot of adults, never mind anybody else. Okay, so this is the kind of thing that we're looking for. Now, think about listen and match. Anybody got any ideas what rationale there might be with listen and match, or what types of activity we're talking about here? No? So if we say listen and draw or color, okay, yeah, a picture dictation, or follow the map, for example. Listen and match, what kind of activities are we looking at there? In the chat box, please. Oh yeah, specific information, absolutely. Yeah, usually I would suggest to consolidate new vocabulary or new structures. Yeah. And it could be listening to encourage, to stimulate mental activity, or to also settle people down. New words there, absolutely. So, for example, activities. For example, bingo. Is that not a listen and match? You listen and you try and find a matching word or a matching picture on your bingo card. For example, so bingo would be a listen and match. Any kind of board race or board rush would be a listen and match, because they hear something and they have to go and find, they have to go and touch, they have to pick something up, for example, this kind of thing. Okay? Yeah, for the higher levels, yeah, match a person to their belongings, exactly. Yeah, but the very basic level, listen and match, is just listen and match the sound with an image or a word, for example. Yeah, that's what we're thinking about. What about listen and sequence? What kind of activities can we think of there, and what kind of rationales can we think of there? In the chat box, please. Listen and sequence. Okay. Possibly stories. What do you mean by stories there? Sequence the tale. Yeah, absolutely. So put the story in the right order. That could be pictures or text, for example. Yeah, depending on the age of the child and also on the cognitive development. Exactly. So essentially putting something in the right order, be it pictures or text. And what is the rationale? What are they listening for? Somebody said gist, absolutely. Anything else? All kinds of things for this. All kinds of things, yeah. So obviously the usual listening to consolidate new vocabulary that has perhaps occurred in recent lessons. Generally listening for detail as well, depending on the exact nature of the task. Possibly paraphrase at higher levels. Although remember, that might be a language challenge for the lower levels, and also for those who are less literate than others. Absolutely. You could ask them to listen also for specific details, for specific words, for specific structures. So you could get them to put not just pictures of a story together, not just the text of a story, but also the words that they hear in the order that they hear them as well, particularly keywords and so on and so forth. Exactly. All kinds of reasons there. Exactly. Yeah, good. So yeah, remember, listen and sequence, not just the story per se, but also elements of the story, words or something like that. Show the next action. Exactly. That's a good one for write and predict, or listen and predict, isn't it? Yeah, what's going to happen next? What about listen and do? What kind of classic classroom activities do we know about for listen and do? Simon says, absolutely. Yeah. Total physical response. Yeah. All sorts of things to be done there. Any kind of action story, miming stories, all sorts of things going on there. And what would be the rationale? Obviously, we're trying to improve listening for specific phrases, for functional language sometimes, listening to improve concentration, listening for sheer enjoyment, which is a good one, listening to improve the general attitude towards listening. So you're trying to instill in the children and yourselves as teachers that listening is not scary. Listening is something which is quite natural and that we all do. And yeah, exactly. Exactly. All kinds of things going on there. Yeah. What about listen and repeat? Kind of activities do we have? Listen and repeat. Yeah, all kind of drills, absolutely. Yes, yes. When I was a child, we used to call this particular activity also Chinese whispers, but I understand it's telephone stories now. So yes, so remember this whispering of something, get it around the class to make sure that everyone's hearing the same thing. Yeah, used for pronunciation, so training the ear as well. Exactly, absolutely. With drills and chants of all kinds, sounds, helping the children to be able to discriminate between different sounds and different rhythmic patterns, and so on and so on and so forth. Yeah. So I've just heard the church bell chime, which means that it is now 1:15, which means I am effectively out of time. Okay. If any of you have any questions that you'd like, specific questions, remember you've got the question box at the top of your screen. A broken telephone, is that what you're calling it these days? Okay, fair enough, right. As I say, anybody got any specific questions, please use the question chat box, and I will, not the chat box, the regular chat box, but the question box, and I will get to get around to answering them as soon as I can. In the meantime, I'd like to thank everybody very much for bearing with me for the last 45 minutes. I hope some of you have found some of it interesting and possibly even useful. Thank you. Okay, Julia?
Thank you, Claire. Thanks a lot. Lots of thank yous in the chat box. I cannot see any questions, but dear friends, if you have any questions, please put them into the question box, and Claire will be here and she will try to answer. So, very useful advice for teaching listening skills and developing listening skills. Now let's talk about speaking skills, and I'm happy to welcome the next presenter, Joseph. Please start webcasting.
Hi.
Hello.
Good evening. Hello, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining.
Thank you for joining us today. We can hear you, we can see you, and I'm uploading your slides. Just a second.
Fantastic. Thank you, Julia. All right. So while we wait for the slides, I'll just introduce myself very quickly. My name is Joe, and I'm one of the Assistant Directors of Studies at BKC IH Moscow. Yeah, so that's me. Hello, nice to meet you. All right.
The presentation is ready. Can you see
Thank you. Yep. Yes, I can.
Great. And what's about the arrows to change the slides?
Yep.
Yep.
Got it.
Great.
Fantastic. All right. Thanks, Julia. Okay, well, let's get going. Hello. All right. Hello, everyone. Okay, so nice to meet all of you. Now, the title of this talk is Telling Stories for Cambridge Young Learner Exams. But what I like to sort of emphasize from the start is that the tasks for the Cambridge Young Learner exams can be exploited in general English too, okay? So you can take these picture stories, you don't have to be teaching flyers to use them. They're fantastic sources of vocabulary, we'll look at that later on, and fantastic sources of language practice as well, right? So my first sort of tip for you is not to sort of limit the potential that these tasks have to a flyers or movers classroom. You can use them in general English as well. Okay. Right, let's get going. We're going to be looking at the movers exam and the flyers exam here. And because both of them incorporate this storytelling task, where they have to look at a set of pictures that make up a story and describe the action in a narrative sense. We're going to be looking at how to prepare learners for this, what do learners need in order to do it successfully, and how to introduce all of the elements that they need to do it successfully in your class, in the practice classes prior to the exam. Okay. All right, there we are. So, let's have a look. This is what learners are expected to be able to do. Now, if you're teaching an exam class, one thing you do need to do is familiarize yourself with what the requirements are to pass this exam. And this is always available online, and you can see here. I'm not going to go through everything, but with this little guide, the teacher can pick out the entire syllabus. And you don't even need a textbook, really. You can get them to do this with general English life. So what do we need? Talk about things they have done, ask basic questions, understand short texts. This is the kind of thing you're going to be doing, again, I say again, even if you're not teaching a Cambridge Young Learners exam class, then you're going to be doing this in general English classes as well, right? Okay, so let's get going. So what they need is they need connectors, adjectives, past tenses. And first we're going to look at teaching past tenses, okay? So a very simple tip is to regularly ask young learners about things that have happened in the past. How was your weekend? School? What did you do? Etc. Right? You do this every day, and when they speak, when they kind of at movers level, they'll be making mistakes like, you know, I go to Moscow, or I go shopping, and you're going to correct them. I went shopping. Yeah, I can see in chat people already saying, I always ask them about the weekends. Well, when you do that, you're helping build them their confidence in speaking about the past. A few other suggestions. One thing is I quite often do, if you have the technology available, is to get them to, you show them a scene from a cartoon. It can only needs to be one scene. Find a Tom and Jerry scene or a SpongeBob SquarePants scene. Yeah? Show them one scene, get them to write down all the actions they see, and then they can find out, they can ask you how you say it in the past if they don't know, or they can put the story together themselves. So get them to watching short clips of, you know, children's films can help build up their confidence in speaking about the past. Okay. Good, right. Where's my next slide? Here. Okay, there we go. Okay. One of the things they had to do was read short text, and you can exploit these to the max by getting them to highlight and notice the use of words. So one tip is to ask learners to read a story, close their books, and retell it. And you can get them to do this in pairs. This is a really good activity because it combines 3 different skills. So imagine you've got two students, a pair of students. You've got, let's say, Vladimir and Olga, okay? And Vladimir reads a short story, maybe something like, 100 words, let's say, okay? And then he closes his book and he retells the story to Olga. And at this point, Olga is not only is Vladimir practicing his speaking, but Olga is listening, and they're both working on the language that they've just met. And of course, they exchange. If the teacher tells a story, then you can get the learners to write the story down when the teacher has finished. This is called dictogloss. And it really helps the learners because they have to pay close and careful attention to the language. Now, this is not dictation. Dictation is where they have to write every single word. But what you do is you tell a story, and it can be based on a flyer's picture set, it doesn't have to be. And the learners, you tell it at a reasonably normal pace, perhaps slow it down a bit. And the learners have to write down the main points of what they hear, and then they tell the story back to you. Again, this activity combines listening, writing, and speaking. So we're marrying up all of the parts of the test together. Okay. All papers, perhaps it would be better to say all skills, are connected. Okay? And the material can be exploited from every part. When they listen, you can ask them to respond orally. When they speak, you can ask other learners to respond. You can respond yourself by extending the discussion, for example, with questions. And you can get the other learners to restate what their classmates have said. This way, they're practicing language throughout the class, and you are speaking to a minimum, and they are speaking to a maximum. Reading, well, I'm sure I don't need to say, it's pretty obvious, helps to build vocabulary. It helps to reinforce their knowledge of English grammar. And it can inspire further activities too, follow-up activities in which they respond to orally or in formal or in writing form to what they've read. Okay. Right, now, slightly more technical slide, this one. Every learner of a language is going to develop skills. They won't necessarily know that they're developing these skills because they're developed more or less unconsciously. In chat box, can you let me know, do you think that the teacher needs to point this out to the students or to explicitly teach these learning strategies to the students? Let me know what you think, please. These strategies, well, you can see them, all three of them. Depends on the age, yes, okay. So younger learners possibly not, but as they grow older, it is useful. Yes, I'd agree with you, Olga, there. Okay. So circumlocution, you certainly wouldn't need to teach a young learner that word. But obviously it's a child, not knowing a word, you find a way around it. And this is really useful because they won't be, I teach them after they've already done it. Yes, excellent. Okay, so this is an incredibly useful skill for language learning, and you can practice it throughout every single class. So a child not knowing a word, they find a way around it. Yeah, get them to describe. So he's obviously talking about a vacuum cleaner here. And they're going to be meeting words constantly. A good game to practice this skill is back to the board. I imagine you know back to the board. Basically, two learners sit with their backs to the whiteboard. You write a word or phrase or noun on the board, and the other learners have to describe it. So the two learners with their backs to the board say what it is. That's really useful because, of course, they have to find synonyms, they have to find descriptions, they have to talk about what something is for, and that's how they can build up that skill. Okay, abandoning the message. This one can be discouraged. Not knowing the word, he or she gives up on the sentence and starts again. So again, imagine the child can't think of how to circumlocute the word vacuum cleaner. Then they might just abandon it. So she has a, I don't know, and then she moves on. That's, in my opinion, it's a less preferable strategy. We should encourage them to guess and at least make an attempt to describe. And when you're training the learners, in class, what you can do is you can say, okay, don't stop. All right, let's try and describe it. Okay, so what's that machine? What's the machine doing? Is it cleaning? Is it washing? Is it painting the carpet? Well, no, of course not. Is it cleaning it? Yes. Okay, so it's a cleaner. Yeah. And then the word cleaner would probably be sufficient for the child to communicate the message. Right? Don't necessarily need vacuum. And then approximation, the third strategy of speaking skill. The child almost knows the word, so they invent something similar. And again, using synonyms, etc. Okay. And these are all skills that I'm sure all of you use constantly. You know, speaking English, speaking any other languages that you know. I know I do when I'm speaking Russian, because all too often there isn't, you know, the Yandex Translate to hand. Okay. Right. Well, next one. Okay. Because one of the key skills that they used, that the can-do statements include, is connecting the language. Okay, so they're looking at the difference between saying the window is broken, she is angry, but if the learners can connect it, that makes their language more fluent and more, you know, listenable, basically. Okay, so one idea for this, and we're going to get some others up in a minute. You show someone clearly communicating an emotion, and then you write it clearly. She's angry because the window is broken. And you'd show several examples of this. And then eventually, you'd withdraw support. So what you could do is, because in the picture, if you're doing the picture stories, it wouldn't necessarily be obvious why the person is displaying the emotion. Maybe, in fact, it may be that that's the story, and they have to move to the next slide to find out. So when they've got the idea after a few examples, you can show them a picture of an emotional person, and they can imagine reasons. And you can ask different learners for different ideas. That way, they're hearing the language again and again and again, and it reinforces the structure. So you say, Vlad, why do you think he's sad? No, his dog, he lost his dog. Maria, why do you think he's sad? Well, maybe his teacher punished him. No? Olga, why do you think he's sad? Well, maybe because he isn't not allowed out tonight, something like that. Yeah, and you can take multiple ideas. Another idea, or two more ideas for teaching because. It's vital to remember. It's vital to remember that because is not an isolated item. It's always connected to something else. So a good tip is to combine teaching because with I like, I want, and I want to be. What do I mean? You say, so when you're teaching them to say, I like, you say, I like ice cream. I like ice cream because it is sweet. You can tip, I like dogs. I like dogs because they are friendly. Yeah? You combine the two grammar points. Similarly, I want to be. I want to be a teacher. I want to be a teacher because I like children. Yeah? So you can integrate the teaching of because with some other quite low level structures that you'll be feeding into the learners at a low level, at flyers, movers, and starters level. Okay. Also, by the way, you can see this picture is obviously taken from Google, from Shutterstock. But this can easily, pictures like this can easily be replicated by the teacher on the board. All it takes is a little stick man or stick lady and a little stick window, and you don't need computer access. You don't need that. All right, the most basic things, and you can get the learners to draw the examples as well using Pictionary. So you give a child an emotion on a card, and then they draw the emotion, and they can invent, in the Pictionary, they can invent a reason. So if I give Vlad card saying happy, then he's going to go, okay, he says he's happy, and then Vlad invents the reason, draws it up on the board, and the other learners can call out, he's happy because he got an A in his exam, or he's happy because he met his best friend. Yeah? And that way they can integrate it in a more or less entertaining way. Right. Okay, so again, you introduce the idea and you gradually withdraw support. Okay. Here we have our picture story. This is from Movers. And you can see the picture. And what I'd like to sort of emphasize, what I'd like to sort of focus on at this stage is, although this seminar focuses on English exams, that these pictures and this story could be exploited in a great many ways beyond telling the story. In the chat box, can anyone suggest some ideas how we can exploit this picture story beyond speaking for Cambridge exams? Yes, that's what I had in mind. Exactly. Eliciting vocabulary. Writing a story, fantastic. Introducing a new topic, excellent. For example, you could be introducing the topic of animals, the topic of pets, the topic of insects, the topic of the garden. Ask for the message of the story. Excellent. So perhaps if the dog had shared in the first place, he wouldn't be so tired at the end, right? But yes, okay, so what I wanted to focus on, though, is eliciting vocabulary. That was kind of the main idea that I was looking for. So, what vocabulary can we draw out? Well, what can we see? Okay, we can see a dog. Well, if they've come to movers level and flyers level, they'll already know what a dog is, and a bird, and a cat. So we don't need to teach them those animals. But what you could do is teach them more advanced vocabulary surrounding them. So, we could get into what the dog has hair. What do you call the hair of the dog? And I don't mean after a hangover. I mean, we call it fur. What do you call a dog's foot? You can see the dog is using his foot to, swat away the bird and the cat. But what do you call a dog's foot? Paws, exactly. Yeah, and now the children can pick up vocabulary like paws and fur and tail and claws, and basically the different parts of the anatomies of the animals. What could we use with the spider? Web, yeah? 8 legs, hairy, scary, good. In chat box, what vocabulary surrounding birds could we use if we showed the children this story? Beak, absolutely. Feathers, no doubt. Wings, certainly. Good. Sure. Beak, feathers, wings, absolutely. Certainly flight, yeah, peck, fly, exactly. Peck, yeah, hunt, exactly. Okay. So again, what I'm driving at is that you can collar certainly on the dog. Yep. So what again, as I've said before, what I'm driving at is, if you had, I reckon, if you had 10 of these stories, right, you wouldn't need to be training them for flyers. You could introduce an enormous amount of vocabulary to the children. And vocabulary is really the key. That was snout, very good word. And vocabulary is the key to getting them speaking English as much as possible. All right? Now, let's imagine we are in fact teaching a child to do the flyers exam. Okay. Oh, excellent. Yes, in the tree, prepositions, fantastic. In the tree, under the tree, certainly. We could certainly use that as well. Brilliant. Hanging from the tree, which is what the spider is doing. Thank you, Alexander. Excellent. Right, so, but let's imagine we are teaching the learners to prepare for the flyers or the movers exam. Now, you might have a very confident child, and a very confident child is going to be, well, there's a dog and a cat. The dog has water, the cat wants water, yeah, and they will just be straight in. But some children, maybe they're nervous for the exam, maybe they're just nervous children, just not confident, shy, afraid because it's an exam. What can you do? You can guide them with questions, okay? So you say, what can you see? A dog and a cat. And then silence. You say, okay, well, where are they? In the garden. Okay, good. What's in this red thing here? Water. Very good. Whose water is it? Well, it's the dog's. Yeah. And this is in training. This is when you're training. Okay. They won't be able to do that in the exam. You can interfere a little bit as the examiner. But when you're actually in training, you can guide them through the process of telling the story if they're holding back. And some children won't need that, only the less confident ones. Okay? It's okay to help them. It's okay to be human. It's okay to support them. All right? Good. Next one. Okay. So at this point, again, we went back to our can-do statements at the start. Oh, excellent. Yeah, thank you, Lucia. Yes, bark, meow, tweet. I don't know if you know your simple songs for kids on YouTube. There's a great song called "I Have a Dog." It's my favorite song on YouTube. You could certainly use it to play for this story. In fact, it would be perfect for the story. Have a look. I Have a Dog. It's brilliant. Okay, so there is a difference at this stage. I'd like to point out quickly there is a difference between saying there is a dog and a cat and being able to connect narrative events together. What do I mean? Here we are. I can say that there is a dog and a cat. I'm describing the object. But here, what you can see is what the learners need to do for a top grade is to be able to say something like, the cat wants water, but the dog stops her. Yeah. The dog has water, but he doesn't share. Yeah? The cat, the bird, and the spider want water. Yeah? The dog is sleeping, and the cat, and the bird, and the spider get the water finally. Okay? And what you can do is you can get the learners to see there are at least 2 actions happening in every picture. Okay? Every single picture that you can imagine. And so one is what someone is doing, and one is how they're feeling. And the pictures in the flyers and the pictures in the flyers and the movers, they do always show, well, not always, but almost always, they show character's emotion, you know? Sometimes you see like father with a map and he looks confused, or, you know, the daughter in the back of the car and she looks bored, and the mother is looking annoyed, etc. You know? So usually the pictures are pretty expressive, and you can get them to talk about this connecting the words. So the dog, so for example, the cat wants water and the dog is angry. The bird wants water and the dog is annoyed. Yeah? The dog is asleep and the animals are happy. Or the cat is thirsty. You know, you get the idea. Yep. So get them to join up the action with the emotion, okay? And what might be the cause of the emotion, and that can help you structure the story. Okay. Good. Okay. Next one. Okay. As well as but and other connectors they need are then and next. And there are almost many activities you can use to help them with these structures. So obviously when they're telling the story, you're going to be saying, well, you know, first, so the dog's in the garden. First, a cat comes and the dog bats her away. Then a bird comes and the dog says, go away. After that, a spider comes, and then the dog, you know, tries to get rid of her. And finally, the cat, the bird, and the dog are all, well, so excuse me, the cat, the bird, and the spider can all get the water. Yeah. So we're structuring the learners, as well as being able to join up actions and emotions in the narrative. They can also relate the action, narrate the action using then, next, after that. Okay. How can we do that? Right. First idea, I imagine you've all tried this one, is to just a very simple one, very simple idea, get them to describe their daily routine. Okay. So, you get the idea. First I woke up, then I got dressed, next I had breakfast. You can also use their classroom routine. So how do we begin every class? First, we say hello. Then we put our coats on the rack. Next, we sit down. After that, we get out our books, etc. Okay? You can use their school timetable and combine that with the past tenses. So you could say, okay, guys, you have 1 minute just to make a note. In 1 minute, I want you to tell me the story of your day. Yeah? Okay, fair enough. So first, like, what classes did you have? What teachers did you have? What activities did you do? What games did you play? And they've got to think, and first we studied Russian, and then we had a break. After that, we played a computer game, etc. Okay. You can use pictures here to draw it together. It'll be pretty obvious what to do. You've got this girl, and she's talking us through her day. Great, yeah. Okay, there are some other ways that we can use get them talking about then and next outside of exam classes. Okay? You can get them to describe their route to school. Okay? First, so for example, first we go through Red Square, then we turn right, after that we turn left, etc. Okay? You can get them to write and describe simple instructions. For example, how to make borscht, how to make orange juice, how do you get dressed, how do you play your favorite game? Yeah. Well, for example, how do you play Fortnite? Yeah. How do you okay, well, you play Fortnite, do you, Blood? How do you play? Well, first you turn on the PlayStation, then you pick up the controller. After that, you select Fortnite. Finally, you press play. Yeah? Get them to describe their games. All of this will help them practice with, did I pronounce that wrong? Maybe I pronounced borscht wrong, I don't know. You can get them to, sorry about that. My Russian is not so good, huh? I'm going to be honest, right? Good. And so you can get them to give instructions, how to play a game, how to make a famous dish, how to play a sport, how to draw a picture, anything. All these tasks will help them be familiar and confident using then, next, and but, and because, and that will help them with Cambridge Picture Stories for Young Learner exams. Okay, good. Oh, sorry, excuse me, I forgot I had another idea for this. It's telling to practice then, next, and after that, what you can do, get them to tell the story of somebody's life. And it can be a famous person that they know. For example, let's say Cristiano Ronaldo. The learner can learn a little bit. Maybe you can even get them to use Google for 2 minutes. Vladimir Putin, great. First, he worked in the KGB. Then he became vice president of Russia. Then he was president. After that, he became president and prime minister, etc. Yeah? Great idea. All right? I hope not. Okay, good. But you get the idea, yeah? Cristiano Ronaldo. First, he played for Sporting Lisbon. After that, he went to Manchester United. Then he went to Real Madrid. And finally, he went to Juventus. Yeah? And they can research people and it helps them structure. Telling the story of a life will help them structure telling the story of a day, even if it's 3 animals in the garden. All right. Good. Another idea for teaching picture stories. Okay. What you can do, show the story in picture form, or you can see this one. Slightly different story. This is flyers again. Okay. And you actually type out the story. Okay. First, learners order the story, and then they can add the connectors. And then what you can do is turn over the papers or remove them completely, and then tell the story. So imagine covering up these papers there, and they've already read it, so it's partly a memory activity. But by seeing it written down, they see a good answer and how it should be done. Now, in my opinion, for young learners, this activity is more useful than watching other children do it on YouTube. I have seen some teachers recommend that young learners see another kid do this on YouTube. But to be honest, at least below flyers, I don't think it's very, very valuable. I think it's better to see the story written down and then order it themselves. Okay. And again, okay, so let's get back to what I was saying before about exploiting vocabulary. Imagine I wanted to use this, I want the learners to tell this story. In chat box, please, what vocabulary could we extract from this story? Okay. Should kids tell a story in the past or present tense? Great question. Okay, good. Okay. In my opinion, they should try to do it in the past, because that's how we tell stories. But, so for example, in this case, you'd be like, okay, no, okay, I see where you're going with this. So in my written version, it's told in the present. Okay. They have to be able to do both. If we review our can-do statements, okay, you can see clearly that they need to be able to talk about simple written sentences in the past and in the present tense, all right? So again, irrespective of young learner stories, irrespective of young learner exams and telling the story task, they need to be able to do both, yes. It's completely valid for the learner to say, the mother and Charlie were sitting in the garden. An elephant came. Charlie gave the elephant some food, and then the elephant, the circus man, came to their house, picked up the elephant, and took him to the circus. That would be great. Having said that, it would be equally correct, because the action is unfolding in front of them, which is in the present, and you can completely understand a learner saying, "Mother and Charlie are in the garden. An elephant arrives." You know. So I would encourage you to choose one and stick with it. So don't confuse them by trying to get them to tell the story in the past one day and the present the other day if you're preparing them for exams. Okay. So if you want them to do the flyers, then don't be like, imprison the elephant. Like it. Don't be like one class you tell it in the present, one class you tell it in the past. Okay, pick one and stick with it. Having said that, and just to reinforce again, you can use the pictures to exploit both. All right. All right. So with this story, people are saying you can exploit emotions. Great, certainly. Action verbs like go and see, certainly, no doubt. Good. Again, body parts. What does the elephant have that the boy doesn't? He has a trunk. Yeah. What about comparatives? How is the elephant different from Charlie? Well, he's much bigger. How are Charlie's ears different from the elephant's? Much smaller. How is Charlie's mum different from Charlie? Well, she's older. Yeah. And you can get them doing comparatives, something like that. Yeah. and build up the store. Hang on. In my opinion, it is a difficult story. Sometimes kids are lost because the story plot is unpredictable. Yes, I can see what you mean. I think I'd argue it's fairly clear what's happening, but there's quite a lot of potentially difficult vocabulary, certainly. Yes. Especially the scene in the circus where they're in the audience. But again, you can take vocabulary from this story, and the idea is that you take the vocabulary out and then you can use it in other situations. I mean, just for example, in the final picture, you can see, where are they? They're in the circus and they're in an audience. So you can teach them the word audience. Where else do you see an audience? At the football. Where else do you see an audience? At the cinema. Excellent. And then maybe the same class or the next class, you can show them a picture of a group of, a full cinema or a full football stadium. No, can you remember from the last class? What do you call these people? And someone's going to put up their hand and say, audience. That's right. Yeah, good. Okay. Another tip is you can show them the picture story, okay, extract some vocabulary, and instead get them to write it out before they speak. And what you can do is they write out the story. Let's say Charlie, this is obviously my example, but imagine the child has written out that story, the paper example you can see below, okay? Then the teacher can extend the speaking with questions. So the child sees the pictures, he or she writes the story, and the teacher says, okay, now you're going to tell a story. And the child's going to say, okay, a boy and his mother are sitting in the garden. And the teacher can say, okay, stop. What's the mother doing? Well, she's reading a book. What's on the table? Bowl of fruits. Good, excellent, right. What kind of book do you think she's reading? A novel. Okay. What's Charlie got in his hand? An apple, I think. Good. Is that a meal or a snack? Snack, definitely. Okay. And then the child can progress to the next picture. And, oh, look, and the child says, an elephant comes to the garden. An elephant? And the teacher can say, well, has an elephant come to your garden? No, no, no. Well, where do you think the elephant is from? The zoo or the circus. How did he get out? He escaped. Yeah. So basically, what you can do is get the learner to tell the story, and then at each stage, you can extend the speaking by questioning the learner and developing the story from there. Okay. This is in a practice class, not in full-scale exam preparation. Okay. Finally, if you're preparing learners and movers and flyers for the exam itself, then you do need to give them plenty of practice at this. Okay. Unfortunately, you don't need to use official exam materials. It's very easy to find a quick Google search. We'll find almost infinite cartoons. If you simply type, now obviously you need to screen for appropriacy. All right, so watch out for that. But any cartoon, imagine any cartoon strip. There are billions and billions and billions of them. And all you have to do is whip out the strip cartoons, and then they can tell the story of Asterix and Obelix, or Garfield, or something like that. It does not have to be flyers exams. You can find any cartoon strip, and as I've said before, a moving cartoon, a cartoon strip. All of these are very rich sources of practice material and of language. Okay. All right. So I can see I'm coming to the end of my talk. So I'll summarize and then have a quick 2 minutes for questions. Okay. So first of all, my number one tip to encourage speaking is to encourage regular reading. That goes across the board. Ask learners questions about their recent lives to practice talking about the past. Practice connectors with fun activities. Give learners time to think and prepare before expecting them to speak. That's important, yeah? You can't just slap down this picture and say, okay, go. You've got to give them time to think, learn, to think and process the story and the language that they're seeing, okay? Right, so that's my summary. And to finish, are there any questions? Please pop them in the chat. No? No questions? Fabulous. All right. Fantastic. Well, okay. I think I've given gone through all the material I had. So I'd like to say thank you very much to everyone for attending, and I hope you found it a useful session, and I hope you enjoy moving forward with your speaking classes. So thank you. Oh.
Thank you, Joey. So many comments in the chat box. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That was really useful information for all teachers. And we know that sometimes it's very difficult to develop speaking skills. And I'm sure that this practical advice will be used by all our webinar attendees, because it's easy and they don't need actually any extra resources. So these activities they can easily do during their classes. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I press stop webcasting now?
Yes,
Julia?
please. Yes.
Great. Okay, thanks everyone. Bye-bye.
So that was the last session of our first day of this conference, Teaching and Assessing Young Learners. So today we discussed lots of activities to develop writing, speaking, listening, and we discussed very, very useful exam preparation materials by Cambridge University Press. I'd like to remind you that the recording of the webinar and your certificates of attendance will be available next week. We will send you an email, follow-up email with all the materials next week, as I've said before. And before I say goodbye, I would like to remind you about our contest for young learners. I'm sure that you've heard about it. So at the moment, we have an online contest for children aged from 7 to 12 who are preparing for Cambridge Young Learners exams, Pre-A1 starters, A1 movers, E8 and A2 flyers. This is an online contest in VK, and I'm sharing the link with you. The submission period is open till the 28th of February. What do the participants need to do? They need to create a short video, maximum 3 minutes, and explain how and why they are preparing for Cambridge English qualifications, for Cambridge English exams for young learners. So the link is in the chat box. Please have a look, and the winners will receive wonderful prizes from Cambridge Assessment English and Cambridge University Press. We have prepared exam preparation materials, and the winners will be able to take Cambridge English exams for free. So I really recommend you to visit the contest page. The link is again in the chat box. Please copy this link. The contest is called Our Cambridge Wiley Class. And the video can be in English or Russian. This contest is for learners from Russia, Armenia, and Belarus, so we can say that it is international. Okay, thank you very much for joining us today. That was a really great session, and we will be happy to see you tomorrow, the second day of our Teaching Young Learners Teaching and Assessing Young Learners online conference. The key speaker of the second day is Anne Robinson, the author of very famous textbooks, fun series, fun for starters, fun for movers, and fun for flyers. Okay, I'm sharing the link for day 2. If you haven't registered yet, please do it. Here it is. The link is in the chat box. Thank you very much and enjoy the rest of the day. Goodbye and see you tomorrow.